Hello guys, it's Queen Onset Haru, and today I'm going to do a short video on pagans and paganism. Somebody asked me what exactly is a pagan. Okay, so when the Catholic Church first began, there was two things. There were people who were pagans and people who were Christians. Catholic Christians to be exact. The pagans were country dwellers. The term country dweller came about because most of the pagans lived in the country and they worshipped a different way. They had gods and goddesses. They did rituals. They would dance naked under the stars. I mean, they had all these kind of free and happy ways of living. So the Christians, did their own thing. So, it became known anybody who was not a Christian is a pagan. So if a person was a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Taoist, a priestess of Yoruba, a priest of Mayat, whatever you are that's not Christian, you are pagan, according to this tradition. So basically what ended up happening is it just kind of took over the years. So whenever somebody says that they're a pagan, basically all they're saying is that they're not a Christian. They're of a different group. And I know a lot of people don't know this, but there are millions of people who are not Christians. And according to the old terminology, they would all be considered pagans. So, paganism is a blanket term. The same way that Christian is a blanket term. If somebody says they're a Christian, you don't know if they're a Methodist, a Baptist, a Catholic. You're not really quite sure until they tell you. So if somebody says they're a pagan, you don't know what they are until they tell you. So if they're open to talking about it, you can ask them, where exactly under the blanket do you fall? Like in my case, if you ask me where do I fall, I'm a pagan who is a priestess of Mayat. Mayat is the ancient Egyptian spiritual system. Back then the Egyptians did not call themselves Egyptians. That's what the Greeks called them later. They called themselves the Kemetians or the Kemetic tradition because the land they lived on was called Kemet. And Kemet translates literally to the land of the blacks. So our ancestors, our African ancestors, the Kemetians, that's what they called themselves. And Mayat was the spiritual system that they practiced. So in my travels of Africa and around the world, I found Mayat at a very young age and was very impressed with it because it stands for truth and justice and love and positivity. And it welcomes all people. Women are given positions of power. Gay people are not persecuted. There's even a goddess of lesbians, bisexuals, and weed and love. Her name is Bast or Bassett, some will call her. That was her role. If you Google her, that was her role. So everybody was accepted back then. So when I learned about it, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Because I had been looking for a long time for a spiritual tradition that really spoke to me. Something that was inclusive of everybody and was loving. So basically, that's how I found Mayat and began to practice. So when somebody says I'm a pagan, just ask them if they're open. Where do you fall under the blanket of paganism? How exactly do you worship? Because they can be Wiccan, they could be your priest of Yoruba, they could be in Voodoo, Voodoo, Santeria, they could be Buddhist. They could be any number of things. Oftentimes these groups do not call themselves pagan. That's what they're called from the outside. But I use the term because I like the term. It separates, it automatically tells somebody in their mind that this is separated from this. And then if you want to know more, you can ask me questions and you can find out more. Now, pagans are not killing babies. We're not eating them. We're not drinking their blood. We're not harming people. We're not cursing people. We're not doing these kinds of things. I know that there are groups that do, but what I'm talking about is in general. In general, most of us don't do stuff like that. In general, most of us are what we call earth honoring, which means we work with the earth. We work with the moon. Like today is the new moon. So those of us who are pagans, who are under the blanket of Wicca, in my case, Mayat, different types of what I would call magical traditions under paganism, we are going to work with the moon today, and we're going to do what we call new moon rituals. New moon rituals are basically just rituals to bring in money, positivity, love, abundance, whatever you're trying to bring in. So you do that during the new moon. So basically, We kind of follow the traditions of the moon. We work with crystals. We work with herbs. We work with different rituals to bring forth all kinds of things that are positive for our lives. So most of us are doing stuff that is positive to change our lives. There are traditions that do other things. I'm not very familiar with them, but I've read of them and researched some ones that may do things that are negative, but it's not the norm, and it's not something definitely I've ever been interested in. But I just wanted people to know that when somebody says pagan or paganism, they're not saying I'm a devil worshiper. Those two things are not interchangeable. Not to say that there aren't devil worshippers, not to say that there aren't Satan worshippers. I've heard of those groups before, but that should not be what comes to your mind when somebody says pagan. Just know that they're saying that they're not a Christian, and they can be underneath any of these many groups of types of people. So I just wanted to give you guys that understanding so you knew that. Again, paganism is a kind of definition and a kind of thing that has a lot of history to it. So you could go and Google or go to the library and learn a lot about it. But that's just a real basic understanding and a basic definition for people who just didn't know what I was talking about. So again, if you have questions, feel free to ask me, because I'll make a video about it and I'll respond to you, or I'll just respond in text or whatever the case is. So I just wanted you guys to know that, and there'll be, another video tomorrow. Hopefully from this same beautiful location. I love doing videos outside of my house. Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and be blessed.